Welcome back everybody to another video from the Sableyes. We're continuing our coverage of the Marion League Cup. We're in round 2 and we have Aaron Vanderkolk versus Scott Langford in what is a Zapdos Jirachi mirror. I'm here with Jordan. How's it going, Jordan?
Pretty good.
That's good, and we're going to see how this one turns out. Now, I think, from memory, both of these guys are playing very, very similar lists of Zapdos Jirachi. Now, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it's very, very similar. Both play Jolteon, both play all those interesting attackers, so we'll wait and see.
Looks like Scott's up to a very strong start here, playing double nest ball from his opening hand. Now, it's a very interesting debate that I've heard a lot of peak players talk about is, in a Zapdos mirror, is it better to go first or second? So I wonder if Aaron won the flip and chose to go second, or if Scott won the flip and chose to go first.
Yeah, no, so we missed the coin flip on this one, but that's okay. Scott going for the Jirachi.
Is that a complete whiff on Jirachi? You don't see that too often.
Chose not to pick up an Electro Power at the end there, so perhaps he, yeah, there you go. So he had the Lily in hand. He didn't want to pick up the Electro Power because it would be a waste this turn. Lily for a bigger hand. Look at all those Guzmas. He's going to be set for next turn. He's got the energy to attack with. But, oh boy, there's not a lot more to do now. We might just see Scott pass.
Yeah, which means that Aaron has a fairly easy route to take a prize this turn on a Jirachi, or even the Zapdos if he wanted to. But Scott does have the Jolteon GX ready to go, which can be pretty strong in the mirror match, just being able to take a knockout on a Zapdos for 1 energy, while also setting up a future knockout with the spread damage. So certainly a pretty decent strategy to go with. But we actually see Aaron having to Erica on turn 1. And, he's mentioned the Zeraora.
Yeah.
Which is another pretty interesting thing to do. It looks like Aaron completely whiffed energy, actually.
Yeah, he could potentially be in trouble here. Obviously, Erica's not a great supporter to be playing. Of all of the supporters, I think you could play turn 1. Erica's probably the worst one. But hey, I guess if you got to do what you got to do to make sure that you actually set your board up. And he does get the EV onto the bench, which means he can counter Scott's Jolteon with one of his own.
I do see Switch in his hand, so he does have the ability to switch into Jirachi and potentially get off a Stellar Wish. He's also holding the Let Loose Marshadow, so I wonder if that's what he's going to do. Oh, he's actually switching between...
Switches into the Zapdos and goes for the Let Loose, so looking like he's hoping for the energy here. If he gets one, he can just take a knockout on the Jirachi and go in front on the prize trade. But yeah, it's a big risk, because if he doesn't get it, Scott's got the Jirachi in the active, and could potentially get out of this dead hand. So we'll see. There's the lightning from Aaron, so he does manage to get it.
He actually got the escape board as well, so he could have promoted the Jirachi instead of the Zapdos had he known he would get that. But I think the Zapdos is probably the smarter option overall.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna make that gamble-y play, you make the safe gamble, don't you? You don't risk everything that you've got. At least that way he only needed the energy to get the knockout. So,
and we almost see the exact opposite play from Scott, where he promotes the Jirachi without having the escape board in hand, whereas he could have promoted the Jolteon.
Yeah, chooses to use the Lily here, draws a few cards and looks at the top. He's going to grab a Nest Ball here, it looks like. No, going to grab the Guzma. Interesting choice, but obviously not a bad one.
He could have also taken Electro Power if he doesn't have one already, because Electro Power on either of his attackers on the bench would allow him to take a knockout. So I'm kind of surprised that he didn't go for that. Oh, he's got one in hand already.
So
makes sense.
He's just going to hang on to it. Sends up the Jolteon Electro Power with weakness. Going to knock out this Zapdos. And he's going to put 30 on the Eevee as well. Put some pressure on so that Aaron needs to evolve that this turn.
That's actually a really good snipe location, because even if it does evolve, which is quite likely, obviously, you just need to find a Lightning Energy and you've got a Jolteon.
Exactly.
But the 30 damage on the Jolteon itself is actually also pretty relevant, because it makes it pretty easy to get knocked out by an opposing Jolteon in one hit.
Yeah, so not a bad choice there by Scott at all. Aaron's into the Jirachi here, and he's looking for a way to start attacking into this Jolteon now. Jolteon has 200 HP, correct?
That is correct.
So 3 Electro Powers and a Choice Band is a knockout. Whether Aaron's got the capability of doing that this turn is another question.
I mean, he's got the Choice Band down already. He does have the option to take an Electro Power off of this Jirachi, so he'd be halfway there already. It looks like he is going to take that. I don't know if he's actually going to go for that line of play, though. I think the probably safer way to go might just be settling for the 2-hit KO on the Jolteon this turn. Of course, that he is going to play it right away.
He's playing it.
He's going for the escape rope, so he's kind of forcing Scott to give up one of his one prize attackers. I'm kind of surprised that Aaron played the Electro Power straight away. I feel like I would have played the escape rope first, see which Pokemon Scott promoted, and then play the Electro Power after if he promotes the Zapdos. But
I mean, it was Scott ends up giving him the one that he wanted anyway, but yeah, big potential to miss there, and Aaron needs the energy, gets it off of the Cynthia, and also gets the Jolteon to save that Eevee, which is a big deal.
Especially since he was wanting to attach to the active, he did kind of need to manually draw off that Jolteon, so pretty lucky there.
So
I guess one of the things that Aaron might have been thinking is, I just want to get this Electro Power out of my hand, don't want to clog up my deck too much. So
yeah, that's fair enough. Because it's something that you're not necessarily interested in drawing into if you need a specific card. So
and that seems to have paid off fairly well for Aaron on that turn. He's definitely taken the lead in this game.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing though, Scott could still just come back. One Electro Power, knocks out the Zapdos and puts 30 more damage on the board. So it's not a dire situation for Scott here. He can also, if he wants to, he could also choose to just use his GX attack. Means that his Jolteon would be safe, but maybe not the best play here. Maybe better to just get the Electro Power and go from there.
Yeah, even though Scott is one prize behind, which is usually a pretty big deal in the mirror match, I actually like Scott's board position quite a bit. But one thing we haven't talked about yet is the fact that Aaron has got that Absol on the bench, which is a big deal in a mirror match.
That's true. So the Jirachi would normally have free retreat with the escape board, but right now it is sat in the active, stuck there, and Scott doesn't have any way to retreat it without using the Guzma.
Well, what he does have is he does find the Electro Power off of that Jirachi if he chooses to take it. He's going to go for Max Potion instead, which is pretty interesting, but I guess he's looking forward to next turns, thinking Aaron's probably going to be looking to half-hit my Jolteon, and then next turn I can just Max Potion it and be in a pretty fine position. But he does have to attach to the active here to retreat, so he's going to be stuck using Electro Bullet this turn, which is why I think the Electro Charger would have been, the Electro Power would have been a fine play.
Attaches to the Jolteon. It looks like he's going for the Guzma here.
Yep.
He's going to kill the Jirachi. Probably not a terrible idea.
Especially since Aaron does only have the one Jirachi in play, he can kind of make Aaron's board a little more awkward. There is a debate, maybe going for the Absol is the smarter play long term, but looking at Aaron's hand right now, I think that getting that Jirachi seemed like a pretty good option.
Yeah, he's gone for the gamble there, and it seems to have paid off a little bit.
You actually see Aaron promote the Zapdos, which is not something we see too often. Do remember that it does have free retreat thanks to Zero or GX on the bench.
That is true, but it means that it won't be able to attack unless Aaron gets the Guzma, which he top decked.
Well, he Ultra
Balling away.
But we also see that he is actually holding Switch, so he can
so he can still get there.
Take an attack off into the active position. It will not be a knockout unless he gets an absurd amount of Electro Powers, and he is going to find himself another Jirachi, so he can retreat into Jirachi, use Stellar Wish, and then switch back into Zapdos. So I think that's what we're going to see Aaron do here.
And that's a reasonable play, and it means Scott's sitting there with his Max Potion in hand, probably be feeling reasonably good right now. I do see Aaron take the Electro Power, so there's one.
I definitely think Aaron was looking for a draw supporter there, because I don't think he has any more ways to find cards with his hand now.
Yeah, so he's just going to switch in, and it might just have to be 110. So Scott now is in a quite commanding position. He can, if he can find an energy, he can simply Max Potion this damage off of the Jolteon, attach Electro Powers and knockout, and then he's away. But that's a big ask with the hand that he seems to have.
Yeah, it is asking for quite a lot. What he can do instead, if he wants to, is he could just settle for the GX attack on this turn and give himself another turn to find those outs that he's looking for.
That's true.
Looks like he might be opting for another Guzma play. He's going to take the Guzma off of the Jirachi.
Yep, so we'll keep the Guzma that he's got in hand for next turn.
What do you think he's going to target down here if he plays that Guzma? Do you reckon he's going to target down the Jirachi again, or maybe get that Absol out the way?
Here's the thing. I'd personally probably go for the Absol because it's going to be annoying later, but Aaron hasn't played any cards, so it's going to be interesting to find out. Goes for the Max Potion. He's going to attach, kill the Jirachi, which is a reasonable play, and he's going to do it with the Zapdos.
I like this play a lot. Obviously, it denies Aaron prize cards by taking the damage off of the Jolteon, but we also saw Aaron didn't get a supporter card off of his Jirachi last turn, and looking at his hand right now, he might get punished for losing these Jirachis so quickly.
Yeah, it does have the Electro Power, so he kills the Zapdos, takes a prize, and gets the Jirachi off of the prizes there. That's a big deal, and Scott again is stuck with this Absol, but obviously he's still got the option to Guzma. He's still got it in hand, so
he does.
But the problem now is that he doesn't really have any attackers that he can attack with.
He does still have access to a lot of his stronger cards, like the Tapu Koko Prism is still in deck. There it is. He's going to search for that right now. And it seems like a pretty important turn to get a card like that. I wonder if he's going to try and take out this Jolteon and try and get a knockout with the GX attack, or maybe just a Hit Bolt, or if he's going to play Guzma and try and target down Zapdos or Absol.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to wait and see.
I don't see an energy in his hand, unfortunately, so it looks like he's just going to have to settle for the Electro Power knockout with Electro Bullet, which is pretty strong as well because it does set up that Jolteon to be knocked down next turn.
That's true. And down to 2 prizes means that the Jolteon being knocked out next turn is a big deal.
Aaron does have access to his GX attack still, so he's probably going to be looking to get off a Swift Run GX this turn, which is pretty important. There's a lot of supporters there.
That's 3 Guzmas and 2 Lilies off of a Jirachi. Those are all the supporters he's been looking for all game.
Yes.
So he grabs the Lily. So Aaron very, very lucky there to get the Jirachi off the prizes to set himself up. Now he's back in with a chance in this game because Scott does have damage on that Jolteon, and Aaron's in a position now where he can also use his Jolteon to knock it out.
He's doing 140 damage already, and there's a 30 damage on the Jolteon, so with one more multiplier, and it looks like he did find it.
There it is. He just needs to switch. That's all he needs now. He needs an out to switch.
I don't think he's found it. He's only got Guzma, and he's already used his Stellar Wish, so I think right now, if Scott can find the ability to Guzma out that Jolteon, he will win the game.
Yeah, so it comes down to maybe an energy switch or an energy from the top deck gets Scott into a position where he could just win.
Well, yeah, all he needs is an energy and a Guzma. Thanks to that Zeraora, he does have free retreat on the Jolteon despite the Absol being in play. Of course, Absol doesn't work on evolutions anyway, but he can, of course, attach to Jirachi if he wants to free retreat.
Misses the energy there. There's an Ultra Ball in hand though, so was that an Ultra Ball? Maybe I missed it. There's an Eevee there. I can see him. He's eyeing off this Volkner.
Yeah, I feel like Scott might just be missing the last few cards he needs to win the game, but from what I can see, he's able to maybe put himself in a checkmate position where he's able to get 2 threats powered up, and Aaron can't deal with both of them.
That's true, and Aaron looks like he still has 3 prizes to take.
This is true.
Fair? So Scott doesn't necessarily mind so much if one of these gets knocked out. The Volkner, of course, getting himself a Lightning Energy and an item of his choice.
Similarly to Scott, though, Aaron has already got 2 big threats powered up on the bench, so I imagine we're going to see Aaron favouring to use the undamaged Zeraora GX and making it a little harder for Scott to take the final prizes.
Yeah, both players still have their GX attacks active, so this could be a very, very interesting game 1. We'll try and figure out who's going to win this one. Scott really labouring over this Volkner decision. Goes for the Nest Ball. Grabs the Lightning Energy as well. He's still thinking about it.
I think the only real important card that he finds here is the Lightning Energy. That's the card that he seems to be missing from his hand. The Switch is a strong option though. It does allow him to Stellar Wish for free this turn while also powering up his attackers. I wonder if Scott is going to try and power up his Zeraora on the bench so that he can take the 2 prizes next turn, or he's going to try and just use this Jolteon to take out Jirachi and go down to 1 prize.
Well, and here's the thing. Scott's sitting with a Choice Band in hand, so Zeraora next turn could potentially be a big threat, but he chooses to attach to the Jolteon, so it looks like we might just be seeing a knockout on Jirachi.
Well, I like this, because if Scott does attach to the Zeraora and try and get the game next turn, Aaron's pretty close to just getting a Guzma and knocking out that Zeraora, and Scott all of a sudden loses most of his win conditions.
This is true, and grabbing the switch off of the Volkner means that now Scott can get himself 1 more Stellar Wish. And he's eyeing off, again, Volkner and switch. So picking one of those. Interesting that he chose the switch. picking the Volkner could be a switch and an energy, but he still needs
Well, here's what
to
I'm
get
thinking.
some stuff on the
I'm
board
thinking
here.
that Scott's probably going to take a prize on this Jirachi this turn.
That's probably reasonable.
And next turn, all he's going to need is a Guzman to win the game. No matter what Aaron promotes, if he uses the Zero Aura, Scott will just need a Guzman to win the game. So taking the switch means that he increases his chance of finding a Guzman next turn, I think. And it looks like he's going for the GX attack, which makes a lot of sense. It forces Aaron to find a Guzman this turn. He does have it already, but he's now going to need to get a energy as well to take a knockout on that bench Zero Aura, as well as a multiplier.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see. And it's awkward because despite the fact that Aaron has had all of the cards that you'd expect to be good in this matchup down, Scott has had an answer every turn. So it's very interesting.
A pretty good card in that Thunder Mountain Prism.
Thunder Mountain does the job, but the switch is important. He needs to get the Jirachi out.
Yeah, exactly. And if he puts the Thunder Mountain down, that potentially helps Scott even more than himself.
Well, that's true. Thunder Mountain gives Scott an out to attack with his Zero Aura, providing that it doesn't get knocked out. Now, it's going to, presumably.
Well, I'm not sure if Aaron's holding the multiplier. If he's holding the multiplier, this is definitely Aaron's best bet to winning this game, and it seems like he does have everything. So it's going to come down to Scott. He needs to find this Guzman this turn, or a whole bunch of multipliers, or Aaron will be able to win next turn with a Zero Aura. You see an Escape Rope. I think that might do it, actually. How much damage is on that Jolteon? I think there was 60 damage.
I can't remember.
He might need that Electro Power.
Grab the Electro Power.
I believe the Electro Power to do 140 plus the Escape Rope will be enough. Aaron's like, yep, I can't survive with any of my Pokemon.
Yep.
That will do it.
That's going to be it. Well, there you go. Scott's got it. A good win for him.
That was a very close game. Very back and forth overall.
That could have gone either way, and Scott just gets there in the end. Again, even though his board position might not have been the best one, he didn't get the Absol, he never got to Marshadow Aaron. Because he had cards every turn, and Aaron missed a couple of turns, it provides a pretty interesting board state where Scott's able to snatch the game. Which is really good.
We see Aaron take the first prize in the mirror match, which is usually a huge deal, but I really feel like that Max Potion that Scott played was the big swing card in that game to kind of put Aaron a step behind where he usually would be.
Yeah, it's almost as if he's whiffed an attachment, and having already whiffed attachments in the mirror, it's going to be difficult to get back in front. That Max Potion really important.
It was very interesting to see Scott play the entire game without getting Absol down. I wonder if it was either prized or if he just never got a chance to get it. He always had something more important he needed to find. But Aaron able to have the Absol down for the entire game, and it really didn't look like it affected Scott at all.
Yeah, so which is quite interesting. But here's the thing, right? If Scott misses one of those turns, if he gets unlucky with a top deck, or if he misses a switch or whatever it is, then it could potentially have completely crippled his game plan, and Aaron could have just ran away with it. So it'll be interesting to see how this second game goes. And it'll be interesting to see, does Aaron choose to go first or second?
Yeah, this time we'll know for sure who makes this decision. I have a feeling that Aaron will choose to go first just because it's, in general, just such an advantage having an extra turn over your opponent.
But here's the thing. I've spotted in Scott's hand, he's just played down an Eevee in the active. If Scott's going second, he could potentially be in a good spot here. I don't know how many other cards he's got floating around, but...
Well, I think having a quick look at his hand, I definitely saw a Lightning Energy. I might have seen an Electro Power as well, so could be a pretty strong Electro Bullet turn one from Scott if Aaron does choose to go first.
And if he ends up with a Zapdos or something that isn't a Jirachi in the active, it could really be... It could spell problems.
Yeah, I wonder what Aaron's going to open with here. It looks like he has to choose between Zapdos and Marshadow.
Yeah, so... Well, no, there's a Zero Aura there as well, so I reckon he's put that one down. Of the three, it's probably not that bad.
I agree with that. That seems fine. And Aaron is choosing to go first after all, which probably the safer play overall.
That's pretty reasonable.
I think he's got the option. He can either go for a Let Loose or a Cynthia. He's going to go for Let Loose.
He's going for the Let Loose. He's gonna try and lock Scott out of this game. Let Loose turn one. It decreases your outs to supporter by maybe 10 or 15%, but that is a massive, massive deal. I saw the numbers on Hey Fonte the other day, and I can't remember them exactly. I have to search them back up.
Well, I would actually say that typically when you think of Zapdos Jirachi, you think of that being a deck that can get out of a Marshadow better than most decks. But I would actually argue that if you don't open Jirachi in this deck, you've actually got less outs than almost all the other decks in the format.
That is true. Now, Scott gets himself a Nest Ball and a retreating card there, so he can get himself a Jirachi, but it's going to cost him.
Well, the retreating card he has in hand is just the escape board,
escape board, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Eevee actually does have a 2 retreat cost.
Does it really?
I think it does.
I'm going to search for an Eevee right now at our desk and see if I can figure that out, because that is That's bonkers.
Because obviously it is the better Eevee. It does have the ability to get Jolteon, so the retreat cost doesn't usually matter too often. If he does find an energy, he can get Jolteon to turn that 2 retreat cost into a free retreat,
which is pretty good.
But yeah, I do believe that that Eevee does come with a price of a little fatter retreat cost.
Yeah, well, there we go. So again, Mitch's game knowledge being shown up by Jordan, but that's fine. It's probably part of the reason that you're in Day 2 of World Championships and I'm not. But that's beside the point.
No, I don't think that has anything to do with my knowledge of Eevee having a 2 retreat cost.
No, I mean, well, if you saw game 1, round 1, sorry, then you'll know that Jordan. The reason that he's in Day 2 is because every turn he needs a card, he just draws it. So that's fine. Anyway, we should get back to this game. Aaron's about to retreat here into a Jirachi, and he uses the Stellar Wish.
Quite a lot of good cards he could have found there, actually.
Yeah, there he had a whole bunch of retreat options, but he grabs the best one, a skateboard, which he can attach to that Jirachi if he needs to. Aaron's actually had a really, really strong first turn here.
And this is obviously the advantage of going first. You can kind of shut your opponent down a bit with Let Loose, get just such a strong board that it makes it super hard for your opponent to come back.
And here's the thing as well, right? He's got this really, really strong turn off of a Let Loose. And Scott, obviously with the hand gesture there, a little bit concerned. He's got the Nest Ball and a Volkner.
Well, I'd say that having a Lightning Energy in his hand is one of the only important cards he really needs to find, because he does get himself access to that free retreat with the Jolteon, but if he retreats into Jirachi, he then can't attack.
That's true. He gets the switch in the Lightning Energy off of the Volkner and then Nest Balls for Zapdos, and you can see him just looking through his hand just to make sure that is the correct decision. Chooses it here. Looks like he might be going for the knockout on the Jirachi here. Again, Aaron doesn't have any other Jirachis in play. If you want to slow him down, I guess that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a very safe and smart play from Scott, not trying to risk missing off of a Jirachi and just taking the guaranteed prize. But it's still, if you look at the difference between Aaron's and Scott's board, there's an obvious winner in this turn 1.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that Aaron is definitely in the box seat, and he can put down his Thunder Mountain potentially to attach to a whole bunch of stuff on the bench and give himself the option to knock this Zapdos straight out. Goes for the Electro Power but takes it back.
Still considering his options.
I
think if he does play the Thunder Mountain this turn, it will allow him to attack with any of Jolteon's attacks. He can use Swift Run or Head Bolt.
Yeah, but he chooses instead to, he doesn't choose instead, he's still got it in hand, but he chooses to grab the Jirachi instead of the Electro Power and just to attack into it. The Jirachi obviously maintains his board state so that he can get something going if Scott doesn't manage.
And this is where we see the weakness of Scott last turn choosing not to get the Jirachi. He has to re-promote that Eevee. He now has to find either another Zapdos or the Jirachi now. He had the escape board, so he would have been able to promote the Jirachi for free last turn. So, unfortunately, Scott's prize wasn't probably as good as he was hoping for, but
yeah,
he might get punished a bit here for his slow start due to that Marshadow.
And he always goes for the Nest Ball, thinks about the Zapdos, and eventually chooses the Jirachi, but it might just be too late, especially since Aaron hasn't used his GX attack. He's still got this fully powered Jolteon. He's got a powered Zapdos on the bench. He's got 1 energy on the Zero Aura. He's got the Thunder Mountain in hand, so even if Scott somehow manages to pull something off here, he's still going to be able to get the return knockout next turn.
And yeah, so it seems like Scott's in the same position he was in last turn. He has to choose between, do I want to attack or do I want to try and save myself a bit with this Jirachi? And
he chooses to attack again, but this time at least the Jirachi's on the board.
I wonder if Aaron's going to try and dig for this one-hit KO. He does have the Thunder Mountain, which is the hardest part to find. He would only need an energy and a couple multipliers, but it's still not super easy to find off of the resources he has currently available.
That's true.
He does
a switch though, so he can get into the. He can do a bit of Jirachi shenanigans. Not that he needs them. He's got a Jolteon with free retreat in the active, but it means that he can move into it. But instead, just decides.
Oh yeah, he did need 2 multipliers that turn if he wanted to take the knockout with Zero Aura. So I think he's just taking the safe route by attacking the Jolteon.
That is true. And one of the tough things with these Jolteon GXs, Jordan, is that all the foiling and the light means that it's tough to see the amount of damage that we've got on Pokemon here.
Well, by the fact that
it was just the 30, correct?
I imagine he used headball, right? Because if you have a look,
or 110. Yes, my apologies.
The GX counter didn't flip, and there are no damage on Jirachi, so the attack he must have used would have been headball.
That's true. So,
oh my god!
Oh well, look at this. That's a big knockout from Scott, and now suddenly he's in the box seat.
I mean, even though Scott was doing very little in these first few turns, he was still applying pressure, still taking prizes, and we actually see him far ahead in the prize trade now, despite what little resources he's had to work with.
And Aaron, there's no way for Aaron to get a similar style knockout because there's no way to attack this Jolteon. It's invincible for a turn, so...
It is possible. You need a bit of a weird combination of cards. You need a
Guzma and a...
Or double escape rope, something along those lines. Plus, once again, I think that's pretty hard to ask for when you're needing to use your supporter for turn to get it onto the bench and then back into the active somehow.
That's true.
There is the escape rope though, and the Guzma. If he has one or the other in his hand already,
then he can get there. Especially with the Thunder Mountain, it just depends whether he's got access to those multipliers.
But let's be honest here. Even if Aaron just plays this escape rope and takes out the Jirachi, that's still really good.
That's a big deal, yeah. Taking that knockout is huge. So we'll wait and see.
I think that's probably what's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see a Guzma into this Jolteon. I think we're just going to see Aaron taking the knockout on Jirachi and once again kind of making Scott's board just really bad.
Yeah, he's got access to pretty much everything that he needs to, Aaron, and Scott's got a half-hit Jolteon on the bench. So this could very well be, even though Scott went far ahead that last turn, could very well be the end for him.
Well, Scott is still ahead right now by one prize. He's going to go down to at least his last two prizes on this following turn. And he's got an Ultra Ball to maybe find one more Jirachi will eventually stick this time, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Even gets rid of the escape board there, so must have access to something else. It seems like a pretty valuable card to get rid of, especially when you're searching for it.
Maybe he ends up going for a Let Loose this turn instead of Jirachi.
That's true, giving himself best outs. But here's the thing. Aaron's got Jirachis down and Scott doesn't. So the Let Loose doesn't work out for Scott. He's stuck.
Having a quick look through Scott's deck there, I didn't even see the Let Loose in his deck. I'm not sure if it's a card he actually runs or not, but if it is, it's quite likely to be prized.
Yeah, so he goes for the Jirachi in the end. So we'll wait and see what Scott comes up with here. He's not got a huge amount of stuff going on in hand. He's got an Ultra Ball and a Lightning Energy. Maybe you're now regretting that escape board. Maybe he was searching out for that Marshadow. Here we go. Electro Power, Thunder Mountain.
I don't believe he's played a supporter card this turn, has he? So he can get that Volta to find a
Maybe
switch.
Get a switch and an energy. Looks like he's thinking about it. And yes, does go for it.
Scott has really been just struggling with every single turn, just trying to build something up. But at the same time, he hasn't had a dud turn yet. Every turn has been quite strong, and he's managing to map out his prize cards effectively with the little resources he has going for him.
That's true, and he's going to be able to get himself another attack off here. Now, it's not going to be a knockout because he doesn't have the multiplier, unless he uses the second attack, which of course he will because he's got 2 energy on it. Again, me not paying attention comes up big in the commentary game. Don't worry, Pokemon International, you don't need to call me up anytime soon. I'm just going to pay attention to what's going on. I think 220 is a knockout, isn't it?
I think it should be.
220 ought to be a knockout on a Zapdos that already has damage on it.
I'd say so.
It's a half-hit Zapdos for a total of 250 damage.
Yep, I think that Zapdos is very dead.
It's a dead one, so hey, that's alright.
I'm actually not remembering how much damage is on Scott's Zapdos. Sorry, yeah, I think it's on 110.
Yeah, I think it got hit once, so we'll see. Here's the thing, Aaron has the Thunder Mountain in hand from memory.
And he hasn't GX attacked yet, so I wonder if he's going to opt for the Swift Run on this turn. It seems like a pretty good turn to Swift Run.
Seems like a very good turn to Swift Run, and he gets access to the Guzma there. So he can give himself another out to knock out whatever he needs to. So the question is, does he choose to knock out the Jirachi, or does he just go straight for the knockout here? He's promoting that Jolteon, so it looks like it's going to happen.
I don't believe that Scott has used his Tapu Koko Prism yet, and if he hasn't, it is possible for Scott to just get a nuts ham where he pulls off Tapu Koko Prism into, say, Koko GX for the game, but Aaron making sure that's not going to happen this turn with the GX attack.
Yeah, 100%. He's eyeing off a couple of cards here. He's got the Koko in deck, but doesn't necessarily have a way to get into it. We'll have to wait and see what happens off the rest of these cards. But Scott here's the thing, he's in a winning position, but he's also not in a winning position. He's got access to win the game this turn, 2 prizes, but it's going to have to be a really bonkers turn, and I don't think those cards are going to help.
I don't think that's going to happen this turn. Obviously, Aaron has finally caught up in this game,
yep.
And Scott's board is still looking abysmal as it has all game. But hey, if Scott doesn't put down a GX this turn, then Aaron is going to be vulnerable to lose the game on the turn after. If Scott is able to set something up here, he's finally got himself some actual draw supporters.
Yeah, there's a Cynthia in hand, so the chance for victory is still there. He plays down the EV.
I wonder if he's going to try and use the Jolteon this turn to set up for a win next turn, or if he's going to choose to keep his Jolteon safe and not play it down. Looks like he's playing very carefully and not activating the Energy Evolution ability. He's just making sure that he has access to a Headbolt next turn without actually putting the Jolteon in danger.
And provided that it doesn't get Guzman next turn, even if he doesn't draw the Jolteon, an Electric Energy will do the job. Plays down a Zapdos.
Well, what is interesting is that with Thunder Mountain from Aaron in play and that Tapu Koko on the bench, if Aaron does choose to Guzman down that Eevee, Aaron can just go Zero Aura, Tapu Koko, attach an energy, and now he's got a potentially game-winning attack ready to go.
That's true.
It really does seem like Scott's setting himself up with everything he potentially needs to win the game next turn, and there's not really much Aaron can do to stop it if Scott gets everything he needs.
And chooses to retreat into the Zapdos, and uses the ability from Tapu Koko Prism here. So,
I think he's a little scared of it being Guzman
killed, yeah, which is fair enough.
Obviously, this puts the Eevee in incredible danger. I imagine Aaron is hoping to Guzman kill that Eevee with Zapdos this turn.
That would be a really, really big turn. Retreats into the Jirachi. I think I saw the Guzman in hand. So all it comes down to is whether Aaron chooses to do it or not. Thunder Mountain means that it's free, so...
Yeah, I think that seems like a fairly reasonable play, and it will force Scott to win on the following turn due to Aaron only having 1 prize left. So it really seems like Scott needed to maybe play his resources a little less carefully there. As bad as that sounds, obviously Aaron was going to be able to punish Scott regardless of what he did there.
Yeah,
but
both ways, because I mean, ultimately he could have just attacked the Tapu Koko Prism with Zero Aura and meant that it didn't create any danger for him anyway. So
yeah, I think Scott was kind of just asking for a little too much at the end of the game here. He really does need to pull off a GX knockout on the next turn, or he's probably going to lose. And especially since Aaron is going to be taking a knockout with Zapdos, it's going to be really hard for Scott to pull that off with a Guzman.
The only thing that Scott could possibly have hoped for is that he hadn't used his GX attack already. That's the only way that he could possibly get himself a victory here.
It is still very easy for Scott to pull off a Tapu Koko GX with 1 energy on the board and the Thunder Mountain Prism. He could power that up fairly easily. And there is 3 energy on Aaron's board, so the GX attack has already been used. So but it does do 130 base, so it's only 20 damage different actually between that and the GX attack.
That is true, but that might be a big ask. We're looking at the Stellar Wish here.
He just needs to see so many cards. He needs to find Guzman to bring out the Pokemon he needs to kill. He needs 2 multipliers to knock out the Zero Aura, as well as the energy and the attacker. I think that he's kind of just 1 turn short of being able to close this game out.
Well, he's got the Guzman in hand, but he doesn't have it, and so he instead decides to just pick that one up. He's like, I've got the Guzman, but I don't have the things that I need. So we're going to Game 3 here. Very interesting set in the second round of this League Cup.
Yeah, very impressive game by both players, I feel. Scott was able to make very good use of his limited resources, and in the end, he was just a little bit short. His board just wasn't quite strong enough to close it out at the end of the game.
Yeah,
but
just couldn't get there.
Aaron also playing well, taking advantage of Scott's potentially weakened board and kind of closing out almost all of his options, making it as hard as possible for Scott to find what he needs.
100%. So it comes down to this, Scott, whether he chooses to go first or second, needs to get a nice solid win here, and having already played for about 35 minutes, could be getting close to time, so we'll wait and see.
I'd say 15 minutes is a fairly comfortable amount of time to finish a game, but it's not super safe. It's like That's going to be either close to time or it's going to go to time most of the time.
So Scott hoping that he gets off to a good start here to get back in front and win the set. But Aaron's in a perfect position. He's got enough time to come back, win this third game to win the set. He's done the hard bit, which is coming back from behind. So both players in a really, really good spot. And since it's a mirror, it just comes down to who draws better, and we've seen that twice.
We have. And I think Scott's definitely probably going to choose to go first in this game just because of what happened in game 1. He doesn't want to get let loose again, and he also just wants to try and get a good a board as possible with what little time is remaining.
That is true. Scott drawing his Eevee off the 7th card. He's got a whole bunch of stuff that he can do here. There's energy and all sorts. So
I think I saw a Zapdos opening from Aaron, which is not the best opener in this deck, but certainly not the worst either, I would say.
Scott gets the Lily off the top as well, so he's able to dig some more cards here if he chooses to. But instead goes for the Viridian, gets rid of the Volkner.
I think that's a card we haven't seen from either player yet, the Viridian Forest.
That's true, and gets the energy to evolve into Jolteon. Seems like a pretty good card to have nice and early. Aaron actually has the Viridian Forest in hand too as well.
Oh my gosh.
So now that card's Viridian Forest fodder for him.
Yep, and wow, that's actually a pretty strong hand off of the Lily. It looks like he drew a Nest Ball and a Jirachi to set himself up.
That's really big. And because he's got the Jolteon, he can just retreat for free. The Tapu Koko Prism's in there as well, so he's got access to some decent attack options. So Scott really ripping out this first hand.
I guess one of the main advantages to playing the Viridian Forest is it really allows you to use that Koko Prism earlier than you usually would be able to. So find those energy to discard quicker than you normally would be able to.
That is true. Aaron, what does he have in there? Aaron doesn't look like he has a huge amount of options here.
I'm not seeing...
last card. He's got a Jolteon in hand. There's not a lot there. And Scott is really in a commanding spot here. So we were talking about going to time. We might see a very, very quick game 3 here.
I don't think I see any access to a supporter or a basic actually for Aaron. So if he doesn't draw something good here, this could be the end of the game. He gets Guzma.
So he can at least bring out the Zapdos, but
certainly not a bad thing to do, but it's not ideal either.
No, it's not.
He's going to be doing 10 damage.
10 damage. Or he could do 40 with Electro Power, should he choose to.
Maybe, I imagine he'd want to thin out a card of his deck with the Viridian Forest just to increase his out to drawing.
Here's the thing. Scott's got energy and escape rope, so that's going to be game.
As long as he sees it.
He has to see it. Come on, Scott. See the game.
Are we missing something?
No.
It looks like those are the two cards
he's spotting it now. He's going, oh, hang on, I just win.
I think he can just do this, Mitch.
Yep, he's really thinking hard about it, but then the two, he's looking, there they go, straight down, there's the game.
There it is.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, didn't go to time. That's the end. So, well done. Thanks very much, Jordan, for coming along.
No problem.
And we'll catch you for round 3.
Sounds
See ya.
good.
Bye.